everyone, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Laketra, and as you can tell from the title of this video, I will be sharing with you my labor and delivery story. I am currently in my baby's nursery. That is her name. And it's so crazy that I'm even filming this because I've watched so many labor and delivery stories even before I was pregnant, just because I love hearing about this life-changing moment in people's lives. So past Laketra will be helping me tell this story, or the first part of it at least. I recorded a little bit during the labor process and before, but then when it got close to delivery, I just stopped because things were just going crazy and I just wanted to focus on the moment. So I'll be including some clips of past Laketra, and then I'll kind of pop in and talk about what's going on. So here is the first clip. Okay, it is 7:53 on Friday the 13th. This morning I woke up preparing to go to work like I always do, and I went to the bathroom and I saw blood when I wiped. Thankfully, my doctor is on call this weekend, so I called the on-call number. They spoke to her and she told me to come in and get evaluated. I don't think they're gonna keep me. I don't think I'm going into labor, but I do think that things will probably start up in the next 24 to 48 hours. It is Friday the 13th. And yesterday, Thursday, was a full moon, so maybe it affected my body a little bit. My husband's driving me to the hospital. Our car seat is back here, and it is not locked in. The base is not locked in. But I knew that'd be one of the last things we did. Okay, so from that clip, you saw that I went to the restroom on Friday the 13th, December 13th, around 7 a.m. Went to the restroom and saw red. It wasn't a bloody show, but it was definitely some blood. I sent a group text to my supervisors because the policy where I work at a hospital, is that the first day of maternity leave is the day you deliver. So I had to work right up until she was born. That's pretty much what I did. I did not deliver at the hospital where I work because I thought that would be weird. And also my OB was just at the sister facility. My husband, whose name is D, that's who I'm talking about when I say D, drove me to the hospital to get evaluated. I ended up being sent home, but you'll find out more about that in this next clip. So I'm in the hospital being observed, not admitted. The nurse came in and she checked me. I gave a urine sample. There was more blood, but the blood was more like turning brown. So she checked me and she said, I am not dilated, but my cervix is paper thin. So she would say I'm like 90% effaced, but cervix is still closed. So they're just gonna monitor me and for like an hour to see if I progress any. I guess I am having contractions every 4 minutes, but they're not painful. And they're monitoring her heartbeat, still good. They think she's taking a nap because she's not moving a lot. They do want to see a little bit more movement from her. They think it's early labor-ish is what the nurse said. But I don't know if that means I'm going to stay and just labor here, if they're going to send me home. I think they're going to send me home, but they want to just monitor me. So we'll wait and see what they say in an hour. All right, we are on our way home. They want me to go home and labor more. The nurse that was evaluating me was touching my stomach during my contractions, which the pain, it feels like the first day of my period, which is the worst day. So she was touching my stomach during my contractions, and she goes, yeah, these feel like labor contractions. You're in the early stages of labor. Go back home. The pain's at a 4 right now. So she was like, wait till it's a 6. Come back. And she was like, with the way things are progressing, I wouldn't be surprised if you'd be back in the next 6 to 7 hours. So I'm gonna go home, and there's a couple other things that I didn't put in like my bag and baby's bag that I'm glad that I get to go home and get now. And she's saying make sure you eat a hamburger and fries, because once you get here, that's it. Which I knew, but I was gonna have like a salad and soup because I wanted to eat something light, because I didn't want to have a bowel movement on the table while pushing or in the bed. But she was like, nope, have a burger and fries, something that's gonna be like heavy to sustain you, because we don't know how long this is gonna take. Okay, so yeah, I went to the hospital, got evaluated. The nurse basically said I was in early labor, but they weren't gonna keep me because my OB wanted me to go home and labor at home comfortably and not come back until contractions were 2 to 3 minutes apart, or if my water broke. So I went home and kind of got some last minute things together. And ended up timing the contractions around 4:30. Watched the Lakers game. All right, it's 8:27 p.m. I've been timing my contractions consistently since 4:30. They're about 5 minutes apart on this Obia app here. And I'm doing squats during halftime, watching the Lakers game and Miami. The pain is just like sharp period contractions. I just hope I'm dilating. Okay, and after tracking my contractions from 4:30 to around 10 o'clock, my contractions went from being 5 minutes apart to 2 to 3 minutes apart. So I was like, okay, it's time for me to go back to the hospital. So I have a friend named Andrea who was a nurse at the hospital where I currently work. And on her last day of work there, she gave me her number because she was going to be working at the hospital where I delivered. She said for me to call her to see if she was working that weekend so that she can be my nurse, which I loved that idea because I love Andrea. She's super sweet, and that's what ended up happening. She was on call that weekend from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. Not on call, she was working from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. So I called her, or I sent her a text and said, hey, I'm on my way to the hospital, I'm having these contractions. So she's like, okay, I'll see you when you get here. So I got to the hospital, got wheeled to my room. She hooked me up to the monitors. She's tracking baby. She's tracking my heart rate as well. And she says to me, you are too comfortable. And I'm like, what do you mean? And she said, well, you're laughing and you're joking and you're like talking to me through these contractions. I'm looking at the monitor. You're having contractions and you're talking through them. So that leads me to believe just from that alone that you're not in active labor, but let me call your doctor, give her an update, see what she wants to do. Andrea also checked me and I was a fingertip dilated and cervix was still super paper thin. The doctor and the nurse felt like my uterus was actually agitated. Andrea asked me how much water I had been drinking that day, and I hadn't had a lot just because of the excitement of what was happening that day. I was just rushing around trying to get stuff done, hadn't actually drank a lot of water. So they felt like my uterus was agitated, and that's why I was having these back-to-back contractions. My OB wanted me to go home, again, drink some water, take a Tylenol PM so that I could go to sleep and my body could just do its thing. So for the second time that day, I was being sent home. And I was so frustrated because that's not what I wanted. That's the exact thing I did not want. We are about 30 minutes from the hospital. So, I mean, it's not super far, but it's far enough to where I just didn't want to be going back and forth all day. And another reason why I just really wanted to make sure that I got to the hospital is because I was GBS positive. For those of you that don't know, I was group B strep positive, and that's just when towards the end of your pregnancy, your OB will take a swab of like your vaginal, like anus area, send it to a lab, and you find out if you're group B strep positive. I guess it's a very common thing that women carry, but it can be passed along to the baby through vaginal delivery. So you have to get antibiotics before the baby is born. That's what I was concerned about. I didn't want to get to the hospital, some real dramatic scene. I get rushed to the hospital. I'm 9.5 centimeters. They're like, no, we don't have any time for that. You have to push now. And I'm like, no, I'm GPS positive. I have to get those antibiotics. Like something straight out of a movie. But that was not going to happen, as you all will see. Labor for first-time moms, I was being told, is usually 24 hours plus. But I was going off of my mother's deliveries. Like her labors were usually quick with my older sister and I. With me, I don't really know how much of that is because of her body, because she gave herself an enema. Do not do that. She gave herself an enema to induce labor. It's kind of like taking castor oil, but worse almost had me in the toilet. Another story. So I was like, my mom has quick labor, so maybe I will too. I did not. So that's why I was concerned. That's why I really wanted to make sure I was in the hospital. I later found out that if that does happen where you get to the hospital and they don't have time to give you antibiotics, that they have to just monitor the baby in the nursery, and I think she may have gotten some meds or something. So there's a solution in the event that that does happen. So I just shouldn't have had to worry about that. So I got sent home and I was having a temper tantrum in my mind. I was like,
fine, I'm gonna have a home delivery then, because people keep sending me home. I'm really in labor. I'm not gonna go to the hospital until her head comes out. You guys can call the paramedics, and then that's when I'll know that I'm in labor, I guess.
I was just being real dramatic and just wanted her to come out. So on the way home, my husband stopped by a 24-hour CVS, got some water, Tylenol PM, took it, went home, and went to sleep. At around 3:45 a.m., I remember turning from my left side to my right side and feeling a pop and then a warm sensation between my legs. It was so disgusting. It didn't feel like I was peeing on myself. It just felt nasty. It was just mushy. It was thicker than like urine. So I knew that my water had broke. I kind of just paused for about 30 seconds because it just felt nasty. I didn't want to move. So I touched my husband and I said, my water broke. And he just said, what? He didn't panic. D is a very calm person. I've never really seen him panic. He's very cool under pressure. So he just came around, he got out of the bed and walked around to my side of the bed. And I said, look at the back of my dress, because I was wearing like a night dress. And he's like, yeah, it's soaked. So I was like, yeah, that's my water. It broke. We have to go to the hospital now. Which he knew, water breaks, go to the hospital, don't wait. I went to the restroom and I put on a Depend. So I had gotten adult diapers because I was preparing for, a vaginal delivery. I'm gonna be bleeding, so I need to get some pads or adult diapers. So I put one of those on because I could still feel it gushing out, and I didn't know, or maybe I didn't remember. But your water just continues to leak until you deliver. That is probably the most annoying part of this whole thing. It's just so weird to be walking around and sitting and you're just like in liquid and it just keeps coming out. It's gross. So yeah, we got in the car and I sent a text to Andrea like, my water broke, I'm coming back in. And she was like, was the liquid clear? I'm like, yes, but I know for sure this is my water. So she's like, okay, I will see you soon. I'd also called the emergency room ahead of time or on our way there to let them know that I was coming in. Not the emergency room, but labor and delivery. I let them know I was coming in. So they were also watching for me. Earlier, the first time that I went to the hospital, when I saw blood and came in to be evaluated, I shaved my legs and I was trying to make sure, I took a shower and I just wanted to make sure that I was, fresh and good to go. This time I'm like, well, water broke. Let me put on something and go. Like I didn't even care at that point. I was like, let's just go. As we got closer to the hospital, I knew I would have to eat. At this point, it's around 4:15, 4:30-ish. And there's not a lot that's open around that time. And we just kept looking for like restaurants or like drive-thrus that were close to the hospital that I could just grab a quick bite to eat because I knew I wasn't going to be able to eat when I was going to be admitted. So we ended up stopping at a gas station and Dee grabbed like a chicken wrap. And I'm a fairly picky eater, so I ended up not liking the wrap. I kind of just picked at the chicken in it and kind of just ate a little bit of that. But my nerves were like shot, or I was just on adrenaline and I was just like, come on, let's just go. I don't care. Let's just go. I'll deal with not being able to eat later, whatever. So we got to the emergency room, and so it was the same shift of people that were working the first time that we came. So I guess I looked like I was in more pain because the contractions were stronger at this point. So the security guy at the front and the person working registration, they were like, oh, you guys are back. This looks real this time. So the guy who was, again, I had to sign some forms. The guy working the registration, he was a black guy. I don't know if he's just been traumatized by stuff that has happened in the emergency room with pregnant women, but he was moving very quickly. And I could hear him on the phone calling labor and delivery to ask for a volunteer to come to wheel me back. And he was just like,
hello? Yes, well, I got a woman here in labor. Okay, well, her water broke, so could you guys hurry?
And I'm thinking, sir, this baby is not about to just slide out. Okay, my water just broke an hour ago. It's fine. But he was moving very quickly, and he was talking about he has some 3 daughters, and security guy says, he has a kid and we'll never forget this night, and everyone's just trying to connect with you, and it's just super cute. We wheel onto the floor, and Andrea's there, and another nurse who was there the first time that I was there, because again, this is only 4 hours later, so it's the same shifts of nurses. And the nurse looks at me in the wheelchair, and she goes, oh, you're not liking this like you were before, huh? Because I'm in the wheelchair because I was starting to feel it more. At this point, the pain was it was a 6, I could say. But still just felt like really sharp period pains. So I could handle it, and I felt like I was handling it pretty well. So Andrea was like, yeah, you're in labor, and I was having to pause when she was talking to me to breathe through it. I really was trying not to tense up. So I wanted to squeeze my fist to grab the rails of the hospital bed, but instead I would do this to keep myself from clenching my fist and tensing up. So doing this somehow was relaxing my body. It was forcing my body to relax into the pain so that I wouldn't, tense up and make it worse. I called family to let them know what was happening. I let my cousin know, who wanted to be in the room, so she was able to come. Right now it is 5:43 on December 14th. We're at the hospital now. They've admitted me. Hubby's here. My cousin's on her way. Hopefully we'll have a baby by the end of today, because I've been in labor, I feel like, since 7 o'clock yesterday morning. Early labor for a day. So hopefully we'll see baby today. Okay, so I know that since my water broke, I would not be sent home, and we were basically going to be leaving the hospital with a baby. So my cousin gets there. So Dee is on this side of me, my cousin's there, the nurse is here. So Andrea turns to Dee and goes, are you okay? Are you all right? And I'm just like, why is she saying that to him? I wasn't paying much attention to him. I was paying attention to the monitors and the contractions, and I'm trying to breathe, and what Andrea is saying. And I look over at him, and I guess she could just tell that he was really trying to focus on what she was saying, a little too hard to try and zero in, focus on what she was saying. He was kind of going like that, and yeah. So then he goes, I took a Tylenol PM. I was supposed to take the Tylenol PM so that I could relax and go to sleep. I did not know that at 2 a.m. he had also taken a Tylenol PM so that he could sleep. And my water broke an hour and 45 minutes later, so he was pretty drowsy. I mean, the meds were good in his system at that point. So my cousin kind of just turns to him and says, okay, you take a nap, and I will just walk the hallways with her, because we don't know how long this is gonna take. So the nurse is like, do you want a blanket? And and he's like, yes. So he takes a nap, and my cousin and I walk the halls. So she starts timing my contractions. Walking the halls, they were 1 to 2 minutes apart. And she was talking about how well I was handling the contractions. I also thought I was handling it well. Again, it just felt like high school contractions, but I did have to stop walking and breathe and stop talking when it was happening. And my cousin was like, you're handling these contractions well, because when I gave birth, I was trying to run away, literally run. She was running to kind of get away from the contractions, because it does feel like the pain kind of comes from afar, so you could feel it coming. So it feels like it's kind of coming up on you, and then it takes hold of you, and then it kind of goes away. So some people think of it as this, but she thought of it as coming from afar, hitting you, and then going away. So I could see why you kind of want to run from it, because when I could feel it coming, it was oh no, here it comes, brace yourself, and then it goes away. In the midst of all this walking, my amniotic fluid is still coming out. And, you know, I have to like pee. I still have to use the restroom. So I'm like, at that point, I was like, why even wipe? Because there's so much fluids down here. Why even wipe? Like, she would have to help me because I was wearing a pad because I had to take the pins off and put on like mesh panties kind of, and like a pad, I think. I just remember the nurse giving me pads to kind of like soak it up basically and just keep walking. So I would walk the hallway, I took a lap, and then I got on the yoga ball. And on the yoga ball, my contractions were 3 to 4 minutes apart. By this time, my husband's had a good nap. He's now awake and alert, and we're just kind of like waiting it out now. So Andrea leaves because it's the end of her shift. She's 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. and my new nurse comes in. And again, I'm just kind of still laboring in the bed. The pain is increasing a little bit more. I'm still not really dilated. I think around noon, they checked me and I was 2 centimeters. So when your water breaks, you only have, or the hospital will only allow, your doctor will only allow 24 hours for you to be in labor as to not risk infection to the baby, because there's now nothing blocking, there's no barrier between like baby and the world because your water has broken. So the clock is ticking. So it's noon and I've only dilated 2 centimeters, even with walking, and I laid back down and, you know, only 2 centimeters. The pain is increasing now from a 6 to like a 7. So my nurse talked to my OB. My OB wants me to have Pitocin, which is the thing that I did not want. I did not want to be induced, but I could understand why she wanted to do it. Again, the clock is ticking. We're gonna have to speed this up. So when my nurse came in and said that, I said, I will need an epidural then, because the pain was a 7, creeping on to an 8. And at that point, the pain of the contractions was starting to scare me because they were getting so bad. I was still handling it well. I kind of would just breathe and kind of like moan through it. And I was starting to moan louder because the pain was getting more intense and it was scaring me. And I knew the fear was not going to allow my body to relax. My OB and the nurse also felt like the epidural might relax my body enough to keep progressing, because again, remember, my body had been doing this since 7 a.m. the morning before. The doctor walks in and I'm like nervous about this part of it because I just don't know. I know what to expect, but I just don't know how it's gonna go. When I tell you that was the most pleasant epidural experience, I don't think it could have gone better. So the doctor walks in, you know, he prepares me. I only felt the bee sting of him numbing my back. After that, like nothing. I'm kind of just sitting rounded like this. The nurse is in front of me. My husband is on the other side of the room facing the anesthesiologist, watching him like a hawk. Like he did not take his eyes off him the whole time. He's not even responding. He's just locked in to make sure that he wasn't doing anything crazy, I guess. I did feel when the doctor, I guess, took his thumbs and was running his thumbs up and down my spine to find the space where to put the needle for the medicine. When he was doing that, he was shaking his hand like that up and down my spine. That felt like a massage to me. And I was saying that too, like while he was talking, and the nurse was like looking at me and kind of like laughing because she's like, I've never had someone enjoy this process so much. And then I felt what felt like someone pouring liquid down my back or down my leg. That was the medicine being injected. And then that was it. Like I laid on my back. They put a peanut ball between my leg and was like, we're just gonna wait it out. And my body did relax enough to dilate to a 4. Around 5:30, they checked me, still a 4. So from 7 a.m. Friday morning to 5:30 p.m. Saturday evening, I had dilated 4 centimeters. So we're running on like 16 hours now or so of my water being broken. And my body's just not progressing. I knew at that point that C-section was probably going to be what they were going to suggest, but I just wanted to see what they were going to say. So the nurse goes and talks to my OB, who at this point had made it to the hospital because she was going back and forth between different hospitals, delivering babies and doing, different things. So now she was there. And my OB walks in the room and she says, here's what I'm thinking, or here's what I want to do. So she explains that my water had been broken for 16 hours. I wasn't progressing, but also, which I didn't know how long they knew this part, but also my baby's head was turned to one side. So when they were checking me, instead of my cervix opening this way, so her head can come out this way, so the smallest part of her head can come out first, instead of her coming out this way, like dilating, coming out that way, it was this way. Like they could feel, I guess, an ear. So her head was turned, and there was no way that she could pass through my pelvic bone as I was dilating, and coming out that way would have been dangerous. So I don't know how long they knew that, but when she told me, that was the first time I had heard that. So she thinks when my water broke, at that point, my baby's head had just been turned to one side at that moment. So when she got wedged into the birth canal, her head was turned and they didn't want to turn her or couldn't turn her or whatever. So for all those reasons, she said I would elect to do a C-section. She said that speech at 5:30. My baby was born at 6:11. I mean, it was quick. So I look at my husband and I ask, what do you think? How do you feel? What are you thinking? And he just said, I'm sad. And I said, why? And he said, because you've been in pain for 2 days. And I'm like, yes, but now it's about to happen and we're going to just do it and we're going to have a baby and, that's fine. So they bring in another anesthesiologist who needs to numb me now from the chest down. That guy was even more amazing than the first anesthesiologist. So every little symptom or thing that I was feeling, I was like telling my cousin, like, oh, I feel this, or I feel like that, I feel like that. He was in the corner yelling out, like, I can give you something for that. Like, he just was like my plug. He just kept putting things in my IV to make me feel comfortable. He said, I'm gonna give you a dense amount of meds. I'm gonna put you one step before being put under completely. I'm going to be in the operating room with you, the delivery operating room with you. So if you feel the slightest bit of anything, tell me and I'll handle it. So he numbed me, kept testing, do you feel this? At one point I was like, nope. And he goes, okay, you're good to go. Then the other thing I was dreading happened. I started to feel nauseous. I was numb from the chest down, laying flat on my back in the bed. I could not sit up or hurl myself over. So I could feel the vomit just like trying to come up. So I instead like turned my head to the side and kind of hunched my shoulders over. Like this is as much movement as I could do. And so it was like dry heaving, and they gave me the green cone bag, and I was just throwing up liquid because the whole time I was in labor, I'd only had ice chips and lemon, like Italian ice. So they took all my liquids away at that point, and my plug, he came over and he gave me some meds for the nausea, and it kind of just took the edge off of it. It kind of subsided a little bit. It didn't go away completely, but it was like, okay, it's time to go. So my cousin had to go to the waiting room. Dee's walking with me as they're wheeling me. They stop him at the door to get him all dressed. I go in. I forgot to mention, my nurse called Andrea and said, hey, your friend is having a C-section. Do you want to come in early? Because her shift didn't start till 7, but it's 5:30. Do you want to come in early and be her nurse? So she said yes, which was super sweet. So she's there with me. I am high as a kite. Like, I feel amazing, but I'm super high. I know what's going on, but I feel like I'm floating. So they pull me from my bed to the operating table. I closed my eyes for that part. They picked up the sheet to transfer me, and I closed my eyes, and it felt like I was on a waterbed. It was amazing. So a second anesthesiologist joined on my right side, and by that time they had brought D, and he's on my left side. And she's telling me, like, here's what you should feel, here's what you should expect. And I'm like, okay, just let me know when they cut me. And she said, oh, they've already cut you. Like, you've been open. Let me rewind for a second. before my OB started, the operation, or before she started the C-section, they said, do you want to see the procedure? And I was confused. I was like, what do you mean? They're like, do you want to see her like cut you and, bring her open? I was like, absolutely not. I don't. I would just like to see the baby when she's already out. They were going to give me the option of only putting up a clear sheet so that I could see her. This sounds like something out of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Like, I would be laying on the table watching her take a scalpel and stab and cut and go through the layers and yank out. I don't want to see it, because even though I'm numb, I know I would start to feel it. So they put up a clear sheet and then a purple one, so we didn't have to see it. So we're just laying there. He and I are kind of like talking. I'm like, what's taking so long? Like, I just want to see her. Like, I want to see this person that's been growing inside of me for the better part of a year. So the anesthesiologist on my right just says, okay, here's the big push, which I guess she meant tug or whatever, because I wasn't pushing. But it just felt like someone then sat on my stomach, and then I heard her before I saw her. So I just hear like, yeah. And I immediately burst into tears because I was like, oh my God, this is the cutest cry ever. I thought she sounded so cute. And even till this day, her cry is cute to me. So I start crying, and Dee's like wiping my tears, and they pull the purple curtain down. I could see like this ball of a baby, and they pulled her around to my side, and I looked at her and I was like, oh, and she's cute. So like, I'm crying, Dee's crying, and they bring her over, and I'm looking at her, and she has her face all like crumpled up. I didn't know that Dee was crying until afterwards when I was in recovery. My cousin asked him if he was crying, and he's like, yeah. And I'm like, really? Why were you crying? And he's like, oh no, I was crying because I wanted to be over. Like, his nerves were shot. Like, he was so just nervous about the whole thing. But it probably looked like such a cute scene. To like the nurses, like, Mom was crying, Dad was crying. It was just beautiful. We were both crying, yes, but for different reasons. And she was 8 pounds, 4 ounces, 18.5 inches long. She's short, because I'm short, I'm 5'1". So she's probably gonna be short like me, but 8 pounds, 4 ounces, all those hamburgers and fries to keep from being nauseous. So they take her to the nursery, he takes her to the nursery, and the doctor's finishing up, and Andrea's there still. And I remember saying, she's just so cute, Andrea, isn't she cute? Isn't she so cute? And Andrea's like laughing and nodding, like, yes, she's very cute. She's very, very cute. And one of the other nurses in the room says, and she has eyebrows already. I didn't know that eyebrows was like something that newborns didn't have when they were born, not always. And I'm convinced that she's a week older than she actually is, because all of my ultrasounds always like pegged her a week ahead. But Andrea was saying she has some very distinct features for someone who's a newborn. Like, you can kind of already tell what she's gonna look like. Next video that I'll do will be a very raw and real postpartum update, because when we got home, it got real.